anything before we start, or do you want to just go right in?
I vote we just go right into it.
Otherwise, you'll be late for work.
Yeah.
And it's your first day on a new job, right?
Sort of. I mean, I've worked there before. It's one of these contract things.
Oh, okay.
I'm only on this show for 2 weeks, so it's actually not that bad.
What's the show?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is Cinemasters Ultimate Timeline.
All right. Welcome to Cinemasters Ultimate Timeline. I am Nathaniel Draper, and joining me is my good friend Andrew DeYoung.
Hey, how you doing?
And this is the show where we watch movies, talk about them, and come up with alternate versions for how they could have been even better movies. And this week, we are doing The Matrix.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. When you said The Matrix, I was like, why The Matrix? Like, that movie is already really, really well-renowned. Like, it's just... like, why did you pick The Matrix?
Yes, I figured there were going to be people who ask this because it is renowned as a classic, and I certainly think it's deserving of that. However, over the years, as I have watched it more and more, certain things about it have bugged me. Mm-hmm. And I think there is a way this movie could be even better. I want to also add, this is one of the movies that, as a kid, got me excited about making movies.
Oh, really?
This is because it came out around the time. Yeah. Because when it came out, DVD was just a thing, right?
Okay, yeah.
And and with a lot of these movies, there was bonus features. They were behind the scenes, and you could see all the stuff they were doing, and you had all this access to information in terms of how the movie was being made. And this was one of the first movies that I saw and went, wow, I want to do something like that. That looks so cool.
That's awesome.
Part of that was also the visual effects. I mean, I saw it as a kid. I mean, I was probably like 9 or 10 when it came out.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in theaters. I didn't see it till it came out on DVD, but it really blew me away. So it's a movie that I have, it does have a special place in my heart. But over the years, I have come to realize there are certain things about it that bug me.
Yeah. When I was like, he wants to repitch The Matrix, and then so I haven't seen The Matrix since I was a little kid, and I'm talking like maybe 8 or 9 or 10. So I really did not understand what I was watching at the time. Not that it was a bad movie. Like, I enjoyed the movie. It just like, you know, when you watch it now that you're older, and I studied philosophy, I'm watching it and I'm going, oh my God, like that's this guy's influence, or this is a concept of, you know, this philosopher, specifically Jean Baudrillard. I don't know if when Neo opens that book where he's like hiding the chips in, there's Simulacra and Simulation from Jean Baudrillard, and I was like, oh my God, that's so clever. That's absolutely genius, because like Jean Baudrillard talks about how like the world isn't made up of the real anymore. We understand it through like simulacra, and so we don't understand exactly what we're seeing. We only understand it through the symbols we've created to like index things. I was like, oh my God,
that's cool.
It blew my mind. I was like, oh, so clever, so awesome. And specifically when he opens the book, he opens it to the page on nihilism, on like the meaning of nothingness and how life doesn't mean anything because it's a simulation. I was like, oh damn, like that was such a clever reference. I enjoyed that a lot. This movie also made me realize how much I love kung fu movies. That kung fu scene with Lawrence Fishburne and or I guess between Morpheus
Keanu
and Neo.
Reeves. Yeah. The one in the simulation.
In the simulation. That's my favorite part of that whole movie. As soon as I was watching it, I was like, oh, this reminds me of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Now all I want to do is watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Or Hero, or like any other, you know, like beautifully shot kung fu movie. I was like, oh, I want to just go watch Drunken Master by Jackie Chan. Or like, it was, I don't know, it just made me think about that. I'm just trying to think of any other thoughts that I had. I know why. I'll get to this in my pitch, but I know why the ending is the way it is, but I hate the ending of this movie.
Yeah, I agree. The ending is not incredible.
Except for Rage Against the Machine.
That, it's so funny. And I knew you were going to bring this up. I have a list of things that I liked about it, and that was on the list of things I liked about it was the Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, I actually had to shortlist my list of things that I liked about it because this movie was so long. But like, I have, or I wanted to say like two more things. I wanted to say like, I love the Oracle. I'm sad that she died for the rest of the movies because she's basically computer grandma.
Yeah.
She's just computer grandma. And then the last thing I wanted to ask is, how do Morpheus's glasses stay in place?
Yeah, okay. I had never really noticed that or thought about it before, but there's the scene. It's when they're leaving the Oracle's house.
Yeah.
He goes to put his glasses on, and you realize he just sort of sticks them on his face.
Sticks them on his nose? Do they like clip in place? Are they like spring locked?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I mean, they look awesome. They're dope.
They're
like
pretty badass. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, for someone who's running around and being shot at and having to dodge bullets, it's amazing. They don't stay on his face, actually. Maybe he gets a new pair every time he goes into the Matrix.
Yeah, maybe he does get a new pair every time he goes into the Matrix.
He's like, these are temporary. So he's like, they don't need the little handles.
Yeah, I did feel like there was a plot hole. It's not an actual plot hole. It's just like something funny that I thought. But like, I felt like at any time, the agents could have just run a search program for anyone wearing leather and found, like, you know what I mean? Just run search protocol for anyone wearing leather. Oh, hey, those are a bunch of people wearing weird leather outfits. Maybe they're, not actual humans, because nobody else wears that much leather. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's possible that that's actually what they do, because it feels like whenever they're in the Matrix, they get found pretty quickly. They're usually almost always on the run while they're in the Matrix.
Yeah, it's true. So I just assumed it was because the agents had like a cell phone tracer or whatever to like see for links that are linked to the Matrix from the outside.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been my guess too. Mind you, this is also, well, actually no, Google would have been a thing by now. Like, this came out in 1999.
Yeah, but Google would barely be a thing. It wasn't widespread.
It wouldn't have had the same prominence as it does now.
No.
And the questions around surveillance that we're asking today would not have been something we were asking, as at least it wouldn't have made it into the sort of the public discussion or vernacular around
you could
internet.
Back then, if you had said something like, we're monitoring your internet usage or even your cell phone usage, people would have been like, oh, that's conspiracy. You know what I mean? But nowadays, like,
it would have been a lot less accepted.
Yeah,
nowadays
people are like, companies do that all the time, literally just to make money. It's not even just the government.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny to think how we're almost comfortable with it.
It's kind of gross how comfortable we are with it.
Especially if you go back 20 years and think about how at the time, there were people who were saying this is where it could go. I mean, even before that, you go back as far as George Orwell. Even before that, there were people,
I was going to say, that's who were super Orwellian. And there's some Orwellian influence in this movie as well. You know what I mean? Like a totalitarian regime. Yeah. Yeah, but those are the big things that I want to say. The last one before one more question is, I could just listen to Lawrence Fishburne talk all day. His voice is so nice.
Oh yeah, Lawrence Fishburne. He's pretty cool.
And I also wanted to ask, because there's so much religious symbolism in this movie, like it's basically just an allegory for Jesus, like in the biblical story. At one point in time when Mr. Anderson wakes up, when Neo wakes up, the clock is flashing 9:18. I was wondering, because you know more about the Bible than I do, I was wondering if 9:18 is like a biblical reference, like John 9:18 or Matthew 9:18. That's a reference to like waking up and the Lord will guide you. I don't know.
Not as far as possibly. I'm not familiar with anything specific.
It's possible I could be reading into it.
It is a weird time to wake up, though. I mean, so I hadn't noticed that. It's
like, well,
I wouldn't be surprised if there was some significance to that.
Yeah,
actually, because it is such an obscure time, and they do make a point of it.
Yeah, But specifically,
so,
like
I don't know.
Specifically, like, I mean, 9:18 would suggest he's late for work anyway.
Right.
Which is fine. So I'm wondering if I'm reading into it. But I was wondering if there was some significance to specifically 9:18 in a movie that's filled with either biblical references or philosophical references. I'm wondering is that just the time, or would the Wachowskis specifically pick a reference to a Bible, a passage, or something like that? So I don't know.
That I think deserves some investigation. That is an interesting question.
I did a little bit of research into it, but like my knowledge of the Bible, specifically in terms of passages, is like I don't even know where to start. Like, you know what I mean? Like I got nothing. So
yeah, I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
You could probably just go. You probably could systematically just go one book at a time, and then just go 9:18. All right, no,
like
not that one. But the
books?
problem is, you probably would land on something eventually that might even work, even if it wasn't intentional.
Yeah, because I feel like, well, it also depends on what Bible you're using. Like if you're using the King James versus the Good News, like they're all slightly different translations or versions that use slightly different wording. So then you could probably shoehorn one in if you really wanted.
That's true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just curious if you knew something about the 9:18, if that was a biblical reference.
I'm not familiar with anything specific to that. But it's a good question, though.
Yeah. Those are all my thoughts on this movie, or at least the short list.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I actually, for the most part, this is actually a movie where I had a longer list of things I liked than things I didn't like.
That's a first on Cinemasters.
Yes, it is. So
actually, that's not true. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I had more that I liked than I didn't like.
Oh, okay.
But
yes, you were a big fan of that one. Yeah. And actually, I can't remember what the quantity was versus not like on that one. But in this case, I had more. Yeah. So I'll just read it. What I liked. I did like most of the movie.
Yeah.
Agent Smith.
Oh, yeah. You can't. Everyone in this movie just has an amazing voice.
Yeah, actually, every character except for the one guy who's who betrays them.
Cypher.
He's got kind of more of a nasally voice.
Yeah,
but even
voice.
Then, like, yeah,
but all of the
but
main,
even then it works.
All of the main cast. You know what I mean? Like the primary build people: Carrie-Anne Moss, Lawrence Fishburne. I can't think of the guy who plays Neo.
Agent Smith.
Yeah.
And Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves and the guy who plays Agent Smith, who is basically just computer Elrond.
Yeah. Oracle.
Yeah, the Oracle.
She's got a great voice
they all have
too.
great voices. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for interrupting. Go on.
Anyway, I agree. Yeah, they have these fantastic. Their digital projected voices are incredible.
Yeah.
Agent Smith. Liked Agent Smith. The whole questions of what's real versus what's not real. The look. It's a very beautiful looking movie. It is a very well done movie. Like technically, on a technical level.
Yeah. shot super well.
It is remarkably well done. Yeah.
The
And
only problem,
even for the time, like.
The only problem that I had with this movie, the only problem I had with this movie was that it was, at first I thought it was shot super dark. I actually had to check the settings on my TV and computer to make sure I was at full brightness because I was having trouble seeing some of the shots, specifically at the beginning and specifically the first couple shots with Trinity.
Oh, right at the very beginning?
Yeah. I was like,
yeah.
I can't see anything.
I have to go back and revisit I did watch the commentary actually not that long ago, and if I remember correctly, they actually shot that separate from the rest of the movie.
Oh, that might be why then, yeah.
Because it actually does seem to have a very different look and feel, because I think they wanted it, from what I understand, any listeners, please double check this for me if you get the chance, but that the studio wanted a proof of concept, because they weren't sure what it was, because they were doing something at the time that hadn't been done. Like, it really did break a lot of new ground in terms of
absolutely
what you were allowed to do with a studio film. It's actually a very gutsy movie. So as much as I know in Cinemasters we usually pick movies that are not great. This is actually a good movie.
Yeah, well,
and there's a lot of credit that it deserves because it was pushing new ground, not just in visual effects, but in terms of just putting all of these concepts into an action movie was actually pretty groundbreaking. But I think the studio people weren't sure what it was going to look like, so they asked for a proof of concept, and that was what the opening. They shot the opening, and then they showed it to the studio, and the studio went, "Okay, we see it now. We understand."
Yeah, because it does have like Trinity's awesome kick in it, like where she like jumps up at the beginning.
Like jump in the air,
like
and
the mantis kick,
crane pose. Yeah.
And so like it has that scene in it, which is amazing. But yeah, I could see that maybe it was shot differently because of proof of concept. But you brought up the point that like this is we usually pick quote unquote bad movies on Cinemasters. Not always bad, but like we pick movies that we think could be better. And I, like you say, like you have a couple things that you think could be better in this movie, but like I gotta say, this is unequivocally the smartest movie we've ever done on Cinemasters. I
would agree.
It is an action movie that has so many extra concepts included in it. Like from philosophy to religious allegory to like it is without question the smartest thing we've ever looked at. And that's why when you first said The Matrix, you're like, we're gonna do The Matrix. I was like, are you crazy? Like that movie is well renowned. But I'm kind of glad you did because it gave me a chance to watch it again. And I was like, man, this movie is so dope. This movie is so amazing. And so like I'm really glad you did pick it, and because I wound up coming up with a pitch that I really think is great. But yeah, I did want to say like this is a very like just because we're doing it on Cinemasters doesn't mean it's not a good movie. Doesn't mean we don't think it's a good movie. We just think we want to talk. Really, we just want to talk about it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
yeah.
There is actually so. I'll go on to the list of things that I don't like. Oh, the only other thing I had on my list of things I liked, which we talked about, was Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, I love Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite musical groups ever.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, they're just amazing.
Yeah.
So things I don't like. So basically, for me, I've talked to a lot of people over the years about this. For me, the movie is great right up until the moment when they're going to go back into the Matrix after Morpheus has been kidnapped.
Yeah.
And they're in the room with like all the guns are on the shelves.
Yeah.
And Trinity says, no one's ever done anything like this before. And Neo says, that's exactly why it's going to work. Right at that moment, the movie it just drops for me.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Why?
Right at that moment. First of all, because I think it's a stupid line.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But after that point, all of those really smart ideas kind of just get pushed to the side, and it becomes a ridiculous action movie with some great action scenes, with some great, great scenes.
Yeah.
But here's another thing too. As I have been getting older, as you do in life,
yeah.
Violence on screen bothers me more and more.
Interesting.
Even if it's in a virtual reality. Excessive violence has become something that really turns me off of something.
Yeah.
And I feel the next scene where they just walk into this building and just start shooting a bunch of people is really A, it's ridiculous. B, I don't see why they needed to do that when really they could have just had a program for a helicopter and flown it up to the window the whole time.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's really a go-for-broke rescue mission, which is poorly thought out, in which they're shooting people. They never talk about this, but this was something that is, even as a kid, I wondered about this. Like, are the police officers that they're killing, aren't those real people sleeping in pods somewhere?
Yeah,
so aren't they actually killing real people?
If you die in the Matrix, you die for real. If you die in the game, you die for real. But I want to compound on that because I agree your statement about violence on screen. I have less of an issue with violence on screen, but what I have found is as I get older, I find gunfights in general less compelling. They're boring. You're just two people shooting at each other. You know what I mean? There's nothing new about that. There's nothing cool about that. It's just so that's why oftentimes you'll notice in my pitches I tend to be like, oh, let's have an actual fight scene. Like in iRobot, I said like, guns don't work on them because Will Smith has a robot arm. Let's actually make that robot arm relevant and useful. And yeah, so like I just think like I mean, like I said, I'm a huge fan of kung fu movies because the violence is less it's less gratuitous, and it's more like, instead of having one person who has a bigger gun or a better gun, it's two people really like matching their skill and wits and strength against each other in a fist-to-fist fight scene. And I think that's much more indicative of better writing, because then you're like, oh, how would they outsmart each other? You know, is Neo in fact a better fighter than Morpheus? No, but could he outsmart Morpheus? You know what I mean? Like, and you can see that in a fisticuffs fight scene, more so than you could a gunfight, because then it's just like, well, my gun is bigger, so it blows more crap up, or my gun is faster, so it rips more bullets through your body. And I'm gonna bring it up again because Kung Fu, I think no movie does fight scenes better than Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where you can see the characters in any given fight scene study each other. You can see the nuance in their actions. Like, why did they attack in that particular way? Is it because the attack they just didn't work, or are they trying to set another, the politics and strategy in a single fight scene between two people using, a sword and what other crazy moves they use, or knives and stuff they use in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's so nuanced. The fight scenes are so... There's almost as much drama in the fight scene without talking as there is in any plot dialogue-driven scene. But that doesn't happen in action movies. And I think The Matrix does, like, where you say that point where it fails is because we move into the third act action scene. The plot is over. We understand what's happening. Now it's just action. And that happens a lot in action movies. I think it even happens in the most seminal action movie, which is Die Hard.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, too. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, Die Hard basically is... The third act basically starts with... I don't know, you could say it starts anywhere, but I'm thinking of the roof of Nakatomi Plaza blowing up.
Or even just, getting up to the roof, and just a little bit before that. But, yeah, but I
But what's different with Die Hard, you have the ongoing politics outside with the FBI and the police. I mean, even Die Hard kind of is... I think it's a brilliant movie.
I do too.
But there is a... At some point, you do have to, I do ask, is that a little excessive? He's kind of he's a hardcore, not nice guy.
Yeah, he is. I think the difference in Die Hard is when you, in Die Hard, they never really ask. They should ask, but they never really ask the question, like, John, you are killing people. You are, I know they're terrorists and they don't deserve, but they're still human. They should deserve our empathy. And when you kill someone, you can't bring them to justice. They're just dead, right? There's no justice in that.
Yeah.
So
that would be too intellectual for that era of action movie.
I know, and that's such a good action movie. But I think you're right.
It is a great action movie. I do not want to take away from Die Hard. I think it is. Yeah. It is my favorite Christmas movie, and it's not a Christmas movie. Okay, we'll just agree to disagree on that.
But I do agree with The Matrix. Like I think the question should be asked. Just because those people aren't woken up, they're still part of the Matrix. Which means if you kill them, do they die? Are we doing this to save one person just because it's Morpheus and he can get to Zion? Let's weigh the ethics of is Zion, all the people that live in Zion, are they worth all the people that live in the Matrix? Just because they know they don't live in the Matrix doesn't mean their life is worth more.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like that was something that has always bugged me about this movie in particular. And then the last note that I have for The Matrix, and this is something that's been written about quite extensively, is humans do not make efficient batteries.
Yes, absolutely. I changed that in mine as well.
The amount of energy, first of all, that's required to keep a human alive, essentially renders them highly inefficient as a power source.
It's a decline, or what is that called? negative feedback loop. You're losing diminishing returns. That's the word I'm looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, here's something that's interesting. Yesterday, as I was getting ready for this, I found an article online. A guy, I don't know who he was, but he wrote. I could send you the link, or I could post it in the description later.
Yeah, post it in the description.
There was this one guy who talked about how you could maybe create in the world of the Matrix, a justification for the robots to use people as batteries.
Okay, I want to hear this.
Essentially, the solution that he came up with was you have a system created where the robots can't kill people, so they just use them as batteries so that they don't have to commit genocide. And there's a way you can do it actually where you can get enough energy from it while it's highly inefficient. It essentially prevents the machines from having to kill, to commit genocide, basically.
So I just had a brilliant idea. What if your iRobot, you remember your pitch for iRobot? What if your pitch for iRobot is literally a prequel to The Matrix?
Well, it's funny that you should bring that up, because that is actually essentially where my pitch goes.
Oh, that's excellent. I'm really excited for this. Oh, man. Well, you know what? That's a perfect segue. Why don't you start?
Okay. So, as I mentioned, the movie is actually great up to the point where Neo says that line. And I would basically actually just keep the movie more or less the same. You would have to I realized, so this is the first time I wrote the pitch and then I watched the movie, because I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
I went ahead and wrote it, and then I went, okay, I'll watch the movie and just make sure it fits. Mm-hmm. So, and I realized there's a few small things you would have to tweak in order to make this work. But it's interesting once you get into it later, because anyway, here, I'll just get into it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in Morpheus's explanation, where he says, hang on a second.
No
okay.
worries.
So, I personally believe, as a species, as a human species, we are headed for a Matrix-like scenario. It's not going to be one where the machines take over and force us into this thing called the Matrix. I think human beings are going to volunteer to just live in virtual realities.
Yeah, I can see that.
So
I mean,
that's essentially where I
look at virtual reality in video games. We even have like narratives about this, like Sword Art Online, which isn't a great example, but like it's an anime TV show where people choose to go into a virtual reality MMO video game, and like they get trapped in there. That's the basic premise, but like the idea is they live out their lives in a fantasy role-playing MMO.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wait, sorry. What was this show?
This show's called Sword Art Online. It's not the only one, but it's the most famous. It's basically just
that sounds interesting.
Don't watch it. It's not good.
Oh, okay. Conceptually, though, that sounds interesting.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
But that's kind of the. It's not the jumping off point, but that was what I was having in the back of my mind while I was thinking about this. So, as I mentioned, everything is the same up to the moment where Neo says that ridiculous line that I think is ridiculous. At that point, you'd come up with a different way for them to rescue Morpheus. My thinking is they just, do as I suggested. They download a helicopter program and fly it to the top roof and try to rescue him. In the course of doing that, however, Neo is captured, and they rescue Morpheus, but Neo is captured by Agent Smith. Now, Neo is imprisoned by Agent Smith, and you have you mirror the scene where Morpheus offers Neo the blue pill and the red pill, but now you have Agent Smith.
Ooh.
And Agent Smith is saying, okay, Neo, so everything that Morpheus told you about the world is mostly true, but there's a few critical things that he forgot to tell you or neglected to tell you. And one of those is that you human beings are the ones that actually created the Matrix and wanted the Matrix. Going back years and years and years, what happened was the planet started falling apart. You human beings destroyed the planet. and realized there were too many of you, and it was not sustainable. So you created a virtual reality where people would go and live in the virtual reality, and we were made to be your caretakers and look after your bodies.
That's so
while
sick.
you lived in this virtual reality. This is something that you human beings wanted to save your planet. And we were actually, yes, humans are reproduced, but that's so that thousands of years in the future, when the Earth has rejuvenated, you can come out of this dream and come back to the real world. But it's just not there yet.
Yeah.
You have to stay in this virtual reality a little bit longer.
Neo at this point would have seen what the world is like. He's like, it's total chaos, like it's all destroyed, and he would be like, that's because we've been repairing it and we're not there yet.
Exactly. And that's what the machine tells him. And then they said, and yes, and part of the reason why it's taking so long is because there were some people who didn't want to go into this virtual reality and fought back and blocked out the sky. You guys did that. You're the ones who ruined your planet. Why are you trying to now fight against us and leave the Matrix? In fact, you can't. Like, if all the human beings were to leave the Matrix, you'd end up exactly where you were before. Your plan is you're going to lose, and you're going to bring your species to destruction. So this is what we want. We want your help. And Agent Smith could give the whole same speech again. And what's interesting about Agent Smith is he essentially, and I don't know if it's ever really explained, but he does hint at this, that he essentially exists to find the human beings in the real world.
I assumed that's what the agents were. They were like a computer program designed to search and destroy deviant humans.
But what's interesting is he doesn't want to exist. He wants to fulfill his purpose so that he can die, basically.
He's Mr. Meeseeks.
He basically is. He is basically the evil version of Mr. Meeseeks.
Existence is pain, Mr. Anderson.
Because if you listen to his speech where he talks about, I can't stand this place.
Yeah.
It's the smell.
Yeah.
That's essentially what he's getting at. But I would maybe build on that a little bit more, because I think that's a really interesting idea. Anyway, so what Agent Smith basically offers him the red pill and the blue pill again and says, okay, so now you have a choice. You can either help us, and what we want is we want you to go into Zion and upload, plug yourself into the mainframe computer and download this program that we are going to download into your brain so that the machines can get into Zion and find all the people and bring them into the Matrix without killing anyone. We have the ability to just blow it up and destroy it.
Yeah.
But we don't want to. We want to actually bring those people into the Matrix. So you can either do that for us, or we're just going to kill you now, because we can't.
I wouldn't even say kill.
You're gonna.
I would literally present him with the red pill or the blue pill and be like, you can take the red pill, which is a program that will upload that program that'll, let the, basically it put some a door program into your brain, so if you upload into the Matrix, then anyone around you can be uploaded into the Matrix via the machines will be able to find Zion. Or you can take the blue pill and you just resume your life back where you were as regular Mr. Anderson, but you don't remember any of this.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I guess when I said kill, that's what I. Yeah.
Oh,
That is actually better.
Okay.
Yeah. No, actually, I didn't have that in mind, but that actually makes a lot more sense. That's a much better way to go.
I just think if you're trying to show the agents as being benevolent, you know what I mean? This entire time. It
makes more sense. It actually does make more sense.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's actually a good note. No. That's a good note. Thank you. But what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. And then in the other scenario where he goes and uploads his brain into Zion, when he comes back to the Matrix, he forgets everything.
Yeah.
It'll be like, so in either case, it'll be like, you won't remember it.
Yeah.
So
you can either help save the planet, or you can, and then go back into the Matrix, or you can go back into the Matrix and not help save the planet, essentially.
Right. But in both scenarios, you forget everything.
Yeah.
So Neo says, all right, well, you don't know what he says.
Ooh.
But he goes, and then his friends come up, and his friends come back and rescue him. But you don't know. At this point, it's assumed that maybe he didn't say anything, but you don't actually know. But his friends come back and they rescue him, and then they're back in the real world, and then they go to Zion. And when he's in Zion, like, because Morpheus is still convinced that Neo is the one.
Yeah.
So Morpheus takes him back, shows him to everyone, shows him to the counselor or whatever, and all the while Neo is starting to question. He knows this other new bit of information now, and he's thinking about it. And it's not till he's back in Zion that he asks Morpheus, and he says, "So when I was there and they were interrogating me, they said this. Is this true?" And Morpheus goes, No. There's no way that's actually true. They're lying to you. They're trying to control you. That's not actually what happened. Later, however, but the doubts don't go away. Someone who's like at the very top of the council there comes and finds Neo, and later tells Neo, like, I know what the agents told you, and that's actually true.
Oh, damn.
That's actually the case. But think about what would happen if we told everybody this. Like, our whole, like, everything that we're built on would fall apart. And we actually, we don't want to live in the Matrix. We want to live outside of the Matrix. And the machines are forcing us to go in. And we don't want that.
Yeah.
So this is our only chance as a species to actually be free. So that is essentially, then you basically, the next... It'd probably end up being like a 3-hour movie instead of a 2-hour movie, but you would have a whole chunk of the movie where they're in Zion asking, and Neo is essentially asking this question of, would it be better for me to help the people by uploading my brain into our own computer so that we can go back into the Matrix, or would it be better for us to continue fighting the machines? And it can go one of two ways, but the ending that I like is the one where he persists with the question, and eventually the people go, we have to get rid of this guy. Like, he's going to undermine our authority, and he's going to destroy the very foundations of our little civilization.
Yeah,
we have to get rid of him. And in the end, Neo goes and uploads his brain to the central computer of Zion, and the last thing you see is one of those front gates. I'm jumping to the second or third Matrix movie when you'd see like the giant gates for Zion, and you'd see the machines showing up, and you'd hear the machines are coming from outside, and just as the door is opening, it cuts, and you see Neo sitting at his desk in an office, and he wakes up as if he's been in a daydream, and he just sits there.
Even like,
and then he puts his headphones on, and then it plays Rage Against the Machine, and the movie ends.
Oh, see, even what if you did it? You know, the first shot of the movie is Neo sleeping in his computer, or that's the first shot of Neo. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, okay,
the first shot of Neo, where he's like at his computer, and it would like the gates of Zion, and then it would like cut. Like you see the gates of Zion, and the machines show up, and then it cuts, and then it's the same shot again. Except this time, like he wakes up and there's nothing on his computer, and he's just like, and then he puts the headphones on, and it's Rage Against the Machine.
Oh yeah, that would actually make more sense.
So it's literally like no time has passed. He doesn't remember anything.
Yeah, and so it's almost like it was a dream.
Yeah,
but it actually, and you could even leave that open to the audience, like oh wait, was that real? Was any of this real? Because it complements the rest of the movie that way.
Yeah, and actually having this whole thing with Neo, like all the people in Zion hating Neo, but Neo still being like, he's technically the one that saves them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So then you can still continue your Jesus allegory.
Exactly.
Because like everyone hated Jesus. So
well, this is what was interesting. Why I was saying it's interesting coming up with this ending and then watching the movie again and seeing if it fits. Because then what happens is you don't have to change very much, because already then. And actually, I thought it was more interesting if even Morpheus did know the truth and chose not to tell Neo.
Ooh.
Because then what happens, if you watch it again, it's almost, I feel like it actually, the movie almost was begging to go this way anyway, because there's all these questions, like all along they're saying, how do you know it's real? How do you know it's not real? And if Morpheus is lying, it actually complements that even further.
Yeah.
In fact, if all of Zion is built on a lie, it complements that even further.
That's amazing.
And And you even have a line by Agent Smith where he says humans define their reality by pain and suffering.
Yep.
And if the whole narrative
Such
that
a
they've
good line.
created, if the whole narrative that the surviving humans have created is about them being victims of this robot race, it just fits in with that perfectly.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's interesting too is the Oracle then actually becomes not an aid to the human beings, but she's actually a program who is now misleading the humans so that they can actually get into Zion, their
Yeah.
machines.
That's crazy, man. That's really
Anyway,
good.
that's essentially
Yeah.
that's the gist of my my alternate version for the Matrix.
The only
And so essentially it gets around the using people as batteries
Yeah.
because instead of using them as batteries, they're being looked after and cared for
on
by
purpose.
machines.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's really brilliant. Especially the on purpose part. I play around with that too, people not wanting to believe the truth on purpose. But the only thing that I have a problem with yours is Mr. Anderson, or sorry, Agent Smith being a like thinking humans stink and stuff like that. I think you'd have to change his character a little bit so he appears malevolent at the beginning, but then you realize he's not a like a termination program. He's actually like a nanny program. Like his job is to find,
Oh, right.
you know what I mean? So he doesn't hate humans. He's like, no, I don't hate you at all. What you're doing is detrimental to the entire goal that we were programmed for. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm not
Exactly.
I'm not
Yeah,
the bad
exactly.
guy. I'm here to protect you. And so I think you would have to change Agent Smith like in the back half, but make him appear evil in the first half. And the other thing that I would say is
Yeah, actually, yeah.
yeah. The other thing that I would say is you should have, or you should almost have like the movie end with Neo having the choice, so mimicking the Morpheus scene with Agent Smith holding the two pills, and it like Neo like reaches in like he's gonna grab. You don't know which one he's gonna grab, and then have the first movie end there, and then open up with him being rescued in the second movie.
Oh, yeah, you could do that
Because
too.
otherwise, you'd have this
I-
huge long movie.
I'm personally a fan of the big long epic movie. In fact, I would do it as like a classic like 3-hour movie where you have an intermission.
Oh, okay,
right,
yeah.
at that point, like
Yeah.
you'd have the red pill, blue pill, and then you go intermission, and then people are in the lobby going, "Oh, which one does he pick?
Which one's
I
he
don't
gonna
know.
pick? Yeah,
I
I do
gotta go
like.
back
I
in
really
the
like the
theater.
parallelism, especially because Agent Smith wears glasses too.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could actually show, the scene, where agents or Neo or Morpheus is wearing the glasses, and he goes into like reach for the pill, and you see his reflection in Morpheus's glasses. You could literally do that same shot, but with Agent Smith's glasses.
yeah,
That's incredible. That was incredible.
thank you.
Yeah. Those are all my thoughts. We pretty much went over all of them. I thought that was great. A great way to get people in there is having them volunteer. And honestly, like we talked about the Matrix having Orwellian ideals, but more and more, whenever we look at what Orwell talks about, it's always like, companies will be able to monitor our information. Don't let this happen. Like they're going to want to steal our information. The government's going to want to steal our information. When in actuality, like, we're on Facebook giving our information voluntarily. We post pictures.
Exactly.
We post pictures on social media voluntarily. Anyone has access to that, including the government and including companies. But we do it because we want to, not because the government forces us to or is spying on us. We literally do it to ourselves. So I think that's so apropos, because it's like, oh, we're not being forced into the Matrix. We wanted to go into the Matrix.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That was really
Thank
good.
you.
That might be my favorite pitch you've ever done.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, the source material is smart, so I think the pitches are smart.
Yeah, it certainly helps to have a good starting point. Like
Yeah.
as I said, like it was just you really only had to change the last act of the movie, which
Yeah.
essentially is in my version is like another half of a movie,
Yeah.
which is already long. But
That's hilarious because mine is essentially the same thing. I only changed the back half of the movie, but
okay, cool. Well, let's hear yours.
Yeah.
I'm curious about yours.
okay. So I want to be careful about this. Mine's not so much a better movie as it is a different movie. I got rid of parts I didn't like, but kind of at the detriment of some of the themes. But I think it'll work better, or at least differently better. So the only part I don't really like about this movie was the ending, and I know it keeps with the religious allegory, but I think I think I can fix it. I think I can make it a better ending for me, even if it breaks religious allegory. So that's just a caveat. So the biggest difference in mine is that instead of the humans being used as batteries, the humans are used, all our brains are connected and being used as a supercomputer. So our brains are actually being used for processing power, and our bodies are just kept alive in order to keep that brain processing power working. So it's the most powerful processing thing in the computer because all our brains are linked together. So the machines need this processing power in order to they basically have a resource where they can just, the more humans you have, the better your computer is, right? So like that's basically why they do. I couldn't quite figure it out, but maybe it's because the machines need a supercomputer, and this is an efficient way to do it, or because they need like human imagination, because humans have the capacity to imagine. They can imagine bigger and better machines, or simply just imagine new concepts that the machines can then use. So it's basically just like our supercomputer brain is basically just built for making cool stuff for the machines, better concepts, understanding the world. But it's basically a supercomputer and not a battery, because that's dumb. So, you with me so far?
Yep. Yeah. So far, so good.
Okay. So that means that Neo moves through the movie exactly the same as he has been, so there's no difference. But when we get to the scene where Morpheus is like turning on the television and we go inside the television, really well shot scene, by the way. Instead of Morpheus explaining what, like, all that, he's using the same scene, but he explains that the Matrix isn't a computer program. The Matrix is actually the collective consciousness of all the minds of all the humans put together, and we're all imagining like one collective consciousness, meaning that the world is a construction of the people who make it up. So it's all our like universally imagined constructed world. So it's not like it's the machines have found a way to keep us locked in almost a dream state where we're collectively dreaming a reality, as opposed to a computer program that keeps us, complacent. Like, it's not so much a virtual reality as we're all dreaming the same dream all at once.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Which fits also, like, even thematically too.
Yeah, about waking up. Yeah, that's why I was so the machines keep their control by uploading realistic events from the past, so we still have that past future thing. They remove dissidents and then feed them the same information. They feed people the same information over and over again. So our conscious brain is kept subdued by mundane stimulation, such as going to work, eating, watching television, stuff like that. But our subconscious can be manipulated into doing what the machines want, coming up with new ideas and stuff like that. So the reason our collective dream isn't like dragons and sci-fi and zero logic or dream logic is because the machines are feeding us the same information over and over again to keep us subdued. They keep us complacent because, you have to get a job, you have to do this, you have to do that, because that's what we've been told we have to do, and then we wind up telling it to each other. You know what I mean? So they can just feed us little bits of information, and then because we're still human beings, we feed that information to each other in reflection. You know what I mean? Oh, when you grow to a certain age, you're supposed to get married. When you grow to a certain age, you're supposed to get a job. When in reality, in the dream world, none of this we need. We start reflecting it to each other just the way humans would in a society anyway. And so the machines play on that idea of our own subconscious, like echo chambers. You know what I mean? Like information echo chambers. You only hear the information you want to hear. And so, anybody who's like, we're all dreaming is considered a conspiracy theorist, because we've been told that how could this be a dream? And we've been told that you're supposed to get a job. And in reality, we're all dreaming. So this is how they keep us subdued. So instead of training programs like they had in there where they like upload those microchips and then you all of a sudden can learn Kung Fu, instead they're like bits of memories that have somehow been turned into basically it's someone's memory that they've put onto a disk, or and then you can put that memory back into someone's brain using machines and software, so that you, instead of like learning through a program, you're actually remembering someone else learning kung fu, and so you know it because you're remembering their memories.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's
so you're remembering their
that's
memories.
Really trippy. I like that.
So then now you can do anything because you're remembering somebody else learning kung fu, so you now know kung fu because you remember it. So yeah,
I know kung fu.
Yeah. So basically everything's the same, except it's not a computer program, it's a collective consciousness. Are we on board? You good with that?
Oh yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm good.
So the movie's continuing on the same way now, but now, so when Neo goes to see the Oracle, he is definitively not the one. Right? She straight up, there's no like, you have to know yourself, because like in the original movie, she basically goes, know yourself, and she's like, so I'm going to tell you something's interesting. What do you think it is? And he goes, I'm not the one, right? But because they just had a conversation of know thyself, if he had said he was the one, then she would have been like, yep, you are the one. You know what I mean? Because of that scene. Based on that conversation, she basically is like, I can't tell you if you're the one or not. You have to tell you if you're the one or not. Like, it's the belief is there. Whether you believe or not. And I'm going to play more on that in mind. But in this one, he is definitively not the one. She straight up tells him, you're not the one, right? It's not you. You're just not. And so that happens. So then when Cypher doesn't want to believe and go along with what Neo or what Morpheus is saying. So I want there to be a scene when Neo finds out that none of this is real. He tries to tell some of the people in the Matrix that none of this is real, and he shows them definitive proof. Like, he basically uses, some way to show them definitive proof that they're living in this dream, and it's definitive, and we all see it. And as a moviegoer, you're like, yeah, that's proof. Like, I can see it. And people in the Matrix still don't want to believe. They just don't want to believe, even though it's staring them right in the face. They're like, nope. They just don't want to believe. And so Cypher is like those people. He doesn't want to exist outside of the collective consciousness anymore. Cool. So then when Morpheus is captured, just like Cypher and the group of people who don't want to believe, and they go to rescue him, that all plays out the same. When Morpheus and Trinity are safe, when they finally get back into the real world, Neo realizes that the training memories are actually bits of the Matrix. If the training memories are bits of the Matrix that can be stored and then, remembered by another person, the opposite might also hold true. So if you're in the dream, that means you're a part of the Matrix. So you could upload your own memories back into the Matrix, and you could change the system because you're a part of the system. So that's how he becomes like all powerful. So, you control the simulacra, you control the simulation. Or in other words, there is no spoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The spoon only exists if we all collectively believe it. So if Neo's like, the spoon is bent, because he is a part of the Matrix, he makes up the collective consciousness, the spoon is bent.
Right?
Or there is no spoon. Then Neo is successful in killing an agent because he realizes that... because of the forced imagination on the collective consciousness, the agents are just they're like programmed into the collective dream to do the bidding of the machines, and so because they're part of the reality, he can just choose for them not to be there. He can just be like, nope, you know what I mean, and they're gone.
Right? Yeah.
But then he still gets killed. So he kills one of the agents. He only manages to kill one of them. So there's still two others that exist. But in the process of trying to kill the other two, Neo dies. So we can still have the Trinity scene where she loves him because it shows good humanism, and I think human versus robot versus belief is important. But Neo is dead, and he doesn't come back to life because he's not the one. But the real gift he gives them is the ability now that they can understand how to truly control the Matrix. If the Matrix is made up of our own collective consciousness, the more people who understand that they are part of the Matrix, the more people, or the more that they can change the Matrix. You know what I mean? It starts with small things, but and so I also would just want to have like the entire thing is belief. You know what I mean? Neo believes Morpheus believes that Neo is the one. Trinity believes, so all these people believe, and it is because Neo believes he can change the Matrix. He can change the Matrix, but in actuality, he's not the one. There is no one.
Okay, I actually, that's really interesting. I like that. In fact, it seems maybe more in line with what I assume the Wachowskis were originally thinking of thematically. Because what I think is missing from my pitch, what you've included in yours, which is cool, is the whole that whole life as illusion, but how there are things like, I mean, in terms of philosophy, the one thing I would relate the movie to is manufacturing consent, where there's this whole mechanism around the world in which we live that is there to essentially control you. And I think, and this is also why I think Rage Against the Machine fits in the Matrix, is because really I think the Matrix isn't so much about virtual reality as it is so much about you being in the world and realizing there are a lot of other things that are there that are influencing your life, that are a part of this collective consciousness in a way. And the only reason they have power is because we have all collectively given them power over our lives. Right,
exactly. So what I really tried to go for here is play up the whole idea of signs or simulacra and simulation by Baudrillard. So, you know, things have meaning because we give them meaning. So we are in a simulated consciousness and imagined reality. And
that's a good. I like that. I'm going to use that word again.
Imaginated. So we're in
Imaginated.
We're in this, you know, reality that we've constructed that is essentially meaningless, but because we give it meaning, it has meaning, right? And then I wanted to play that idea against the religious allegory. So we still have the religious allegory, but it's because people believe in Neo, that gives them strength. Because Neo believes in the true nature of the Matrix, that gives him the ability to change it. And because those people who don't want to see the truth, they don't want to believe that the Matrix is a dream, they don't. So it has nothing to do with what is real or not. It has everything to do with what we believe is real or not. Same with the whole religious allegory. It doesn't matter that Neo's not the one. What matters is that if you believe in it or not. And that's I thought that was kind of closer, even though Neo doesn't come back to life like Jesus. It's closer more in part to the faith that people have in religion rather than just a straight religious allegory. It's like Neo's not the one because there is no one. But if you believe he's the one, then he's the one for you. You generate your own consciousness. You know what I mean? You generate what is true to you. We just don't do it collectively the way... Well, we do it collectively through simulation and simulacra, but we don't do it through like a quote-unquote matrix computer program collective consciousness that way.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
But the matrix program actually acts as a metaphor to explain that whole concept.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
that's super cool.
Yeah, that's why I say it changes the movie so that I think what you get is a different movie. Hopefully one that would just be as good, like hopefully a narrative that's still just as tight as The Matrix. But I can't say it's a better movie because the movie we got is so dope. But I do think what my pitch is a different movie that I think has some really cool concepts, because I'm a huge fan of Baudrillard. I think what he talks about in terms of meaning and signs and simulacra, simulation, I think that could have been played up more, especially because they made a huge reference to it with that book. So...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this is one thing I was wondering, because it's, I wonder how much of it was because there was obviously a lot of exploration they could have done, and there's no doubt the Wachowskis have read all this and understand it. I think they're smart people.
Oh, for sure.
So it would, in my opinion, make sense that they would understand these concepts beyond just knowing the title of the books. But what I also wonder is, when you're writing an action movie, how much do you go, well, we can't make this too intellectual to scare away the masses?
But I don't know, because like if I think about one of my favorite movies of all time, which is Inception feels like the Matrix, in that it's an action movie but it's super smart. It deals with it deals with the language of film, but it also deals with how dreams work, and by extension, how we view our reality. Using different concepts than the Matrix, but in a lot of ways they have a lot of similarities. So I don't know. I think the best action movies are the ones that do make you think. As much as I love Die Hard doesn't really ask any hard questions.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't think they necessarily and they don't have to be, as I was just saying like a minute ago, they don't have to be these like really deep academic papers about a certain concept by any mean.
But the more they make you think, I think the better they get. Not that
I do think so too. I
mean, there definitely have been academic papers written about the Matrix and academic papers written about Inception, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I just think like when you have an action movie that is smart and has those concepts, I think you get a better overall movie. It's like the Matrix is straight up an action movie, but it's super intellectual.
It is, yeah. I do think. But I think we would both agree that the last half, or not the last half, the last maybe like third or a quarter of the movie sort of kind of becomes something else.
Yeah,
pushes all of that kind of.
That's why I wanted in my pitch.
Yeah.
In my pitch, I wanted that realization that Neo realizes, because I'm part of the consciousness, I can affect the consciousness, so I can change the reality. That would sort of bring that intellectualism back into the movie. The same way in Inception, we sort of, at the end of Inception, there's a couple questions. I mean, Christopher Nolan has the spinning top, literally to be like, is this a dream? Isn't this a dream? Are you living in a dream? Is everything a dream? You know what I mean? So the action never subverts or overtakes the intellectual components of the movie, the way I think it does in the Matrix. We lose some of that intellectualism in the Matrix.
Right. And I certainly think there's something to be said about having these more the components to it that have more of a spectacle to it, because I mean it is a movie, and you are sitting, they are meant to be watched in theaters, and I think there is something, I think it's cool to have scenes which are there purely for enjoyment.
Yeah, Spielberg,
as long as it doesn't act at the detriment of some of the other ideas.
Yeah, Spielberg does that amazingly. He always has great shots, and so does Nolan.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I would love to have seen a version of The Matrix directed by Andrei Tarkovsky.
Oh, what else has Andrei Tarkovsky done? I'm sure I've seen him. I'm just not familiar with the name.
He's a Russian filmmaker.
Okay.
He died before. I think he died in the early 90s or late 80s. Russian filmmaker, did Stalker, Andrei Rublev, Ivan's Childhood, Solaris, the original Solaris. What else?
You're going deep.
Sacrifice. Man. But his films are very intellectual.
Yeah.
And he deals... Stalker especially is kind of this film about what's real.
Crazy.
Kind of the subconscious.
Yeah.
Driving our sense of reality.
Yeah.
And his films are very they're art films.
Yeah.
So they're not for everybody, but he has actually landed himself in the history of film as being a very influential filmmaker. But a lot of people relate his style of filmmaking to like the experience of dreams. It really does. Like when you watch his movies, you like they actually do sometimes put you to sleep, not because they're boring, but because you feel like you're dreaming, like you really feel, because they follow sometimes a dream logic where things will just lead into the other. And while it's in a purely logistical sense, it doesn't really make sense, but because of the style and because it's related to dreams and that sensation of dreaming, you believe it.
Yeah. It's that experience. Like, it's not like movies don't necessarily have to make sense in terms of like a plot structure. I think people who look for that in movies are because they're going to movies to be entertained, and sometimes a movie as an art form doesn't need to be simply entertainment.
No, I agree. Yeah. I certainly think, and that's where I was saying, like, I think I mean, you could tell the same story in different ways. It would just appeal. It would appeal to different audiences.
Yeah.
So, in my alternative version of The Matrix, it's a lot more like a Tarkovsky movie with these really long shots. If you could, people like staring into reflections and
if you could imagine
watching steam rise off of their teacup or something like that.
If you could imagine a world in which somebody else directed it.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, but we are hitting our timestamp marker. So unfortunately, I think that's all we have for today on The Matrix. I wish we could talk more.
I could keep talking about this movie because I really do love this movie.
This movie is so good. We'll definitely have to do some other. Maybe we should look at Inception and see if we could change that. But like, this was
just as an excuse to talk about it.
Oh, exactly. This was so fun to be like, what are the concepts that we want to explore here? This was so fun. This might be my favorite episode of Cinemasters we've ever done. Like, just so smart.
That was a pretty fast hour, I feel like.
For sure, yeah. All right, man. I'm gonna try this again. Okay, so you're Draper Nate on Twitter.
No, it's Nate Draper on Twitter.
Okay, Nate Draper on Twitter.
I get it backwards all the time.
Okay, so
I always default to Draper Nate, but for some reason it was taken on Twitter, so I had to go with Nate Draper.
Okay, and then of course, as always, you can find us on YouTube if that's where you're watching. We're also on Facebook. We're also on iTunes and SoundCloud, and if you leave us a comment or a thumbs up or a 5-star or whatever it is, a like, it helps us grow the channel and reach more people so we can tell them our ideas about movies, and you can listen to us talk for a long time. Yeah. Anything else you want to
add? No. That was fun.
This movie was amazing.
Let's do that again.
Let's do something like this again, and we'll see you next time.
All right, take care.